And now, it's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. Welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for joining me this morning. You know, I've been doing this program for 11 years, helping you guys better understand what's happening in the real estate market here in Charleston and the surrounding areas so that you're an informed consumer. You know, we've got a lot going on in the world of real estate, especially over the past several years, really since COVID. And so we've really enjoyed watching this show help to inform and educate consumers and use this information to your advantage so that when it comes time for you to buy a home or sell a home or maybe invest in real estate, or maybe you have a property that you want to have managed by a property management company, you at least know the right questions to ask. You have a reasonable set of expectations for who you want to align with so that you get it right the first time and you have a fantastic transaction. So thanks so much for joining me. If this is your first time listening, I've been selling real estate here for 19 years, coming up on 20 years in September. I've sold about 1,500 homes, about $1 billion worth of real estate here locally in that time, which is a combination of, homes, everything from your single family, first timers to multi-million-dollar properties. We sell land all over the state, anything from individual quarter-acre lots to, hundreds of acres. We just put one under contract, 150 acres in North Mount Pleasant for almost $5 million. So we've got a wide range of experience that I draw from on this show to help you guys better understand the inner workings of just the real estate world and the housing market here in Charleston. Now, today I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about the state of the market. Spring market is in full swing. It's very busy out there. Properties are still appreciating, believe it or not, even though inventory is still low. We'll get into some of those stats in just a minute. But I want to talk also about, why some homes don't sell or why they end up selling at a discount when in reality they shouldn't, right? There are a few things that tend to kind of go wrong throughout the process of selling a house. And I want to highlight some of those for you so that you can avoid some of these mistakes. I also want to talk about how you can win as a buyer in this market. It's a very busy time of year. Sellers have the expectation that when they hit the market, it's going to be sold in a week. If not, they kind of, have this question mark above their head thinking, what's gone wrong? Right. So we're going to talk about expectations with sellers. We're going to talk about opportunities if you're a buyer. There are a few things that I'd look for if I were a buyer purchasing a primary residence or a second home in this market right now that I think might be ways for you, again, as a buyer to win. And then lastly, the past 2 weeks, I did a rerun last week on the show that I did live with regard to the changes that we are going to experience within the next 90 days or so as a country, as it relates to this real estate commission settlement from the lawsuit, and really how the real estate agent community needs to evolve. And so I want to talk about the evolution of realtors this year and what's going to change, and frankly, what you as a consumer should expect from them. Now, if at any point in time you guys feel like, hey, I want to talk to Brian off air, possibly hire him for my real estate needs. Maybe you just have a question. Maybe you need some help. Maybe you need a contractor reference. You have a property you'd like for us to manage. We're here to help in really any way, shape, or form. So use us as a resource, but also as somebody that can certainly help you with your real estate transactions. My number is 843-800-0065. That's my cell. You can call or text that number, 843-800-0065, or you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You can look at, I think 1,000 or so videos that we have now on YouTube. We've got a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. We try to be everywhere. So yeah, I think if you just Google the Brian Beatty team, you'll find us. But a lot of great content out there. If you don't hear something that strikes your fancy today, just know that we've got basically every base of content covered that you could think of on YouTube. So anyways, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the market in Charleston. It's a very busy time of year. This is really the next probably 6 weeks or when we see the most new listings hit the market on a monthly basis. So part of that is because, look, sellers have been trained that spring is the best time to sell your house because that's when there are the most buyers. And that's going to be different for different markets, but at least for here, us in Charleston, that's very true in that from a seasonality perspective, yes, the most transactions occur within really the next 60 to 90 days. That's the bell curve that we typically experience. I will just say really quickly that for the folks that really focus heavily on trying to time the market, when is the right time to list my house? We're going to get into that next segment. We're going to talk about timing the market. But what I would say is that, there are plenty of buyers that are looking in January, February, every month of the year. You can find some sort of a reason why it's a good idea to potentially put your home on the market. I think real estate agents are really good at finding a reason why any time is the best time to buy or sell a home. I don't think there's any one right answer. I think that there are factors to consider, like as an example, if you're selling something on Isle of Palms, or you've got some sort of short-term rental and it's a very seasonally adjusted market, then yes, right around now would be a great time to think about putting your home on the market. In fact, you should have been thinking about it 30 days ago, and it should be going on this month. The only challenge with that is you have to work around, bookings. So typically you only get to show the property between 11 and 3 on Saturday, because most of those are weekly rentals. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk a little bit about the market in general. We've seen new listings increase at I think a pretty healthy pace. And remember, for the past several years, really ever since COVID hit, we have been in a depressed market from an inventory perspective, right? It has gone down and down and down. It's starting to trend upward a little bit, but in line with demand, I would say. If you look at the total number of new properties we put on the market as of the end of March, it's been about 6,000 properties in the Charleston Tri-County area. Well, this time last year, we were at just a hair over 5,000. So that's up 17.5%. Pending sales are up 7%. Closings are up 2%. Last year was a weird year, especially toward the tail end of last year, as interest rates really started to spike up. Days on market, how long does it take for a property to go under contract? Well, 39 days is the median right now. Which is down from 43 this time last year, and that's a year-to-date stat. In fact, if you look at March, it was 37. March of last year, it was 43. Either way, it's gone down about 10%. If you look at the overall inventory of homes for sale, right? Like we've talked a little bit about new listings, right? We've put about 1,000 more new homes on the market compared to this time last year. If you look at the month's supply of inventory, which is basically you take all the properties that are on the market and you divide it by the number of homes that are going under contract in a 30-day period. And that gives you months supply of inventory. And we're at 2.2 months right now. This time last year, we were at 1.8. Not a huge shift, but if you're just going off of percentages, which sometimes, agents and, media outlets tend to really hone in on, month supply of inventory is up 22%. And so that's, and just while we're on that topic really quickly, that's why you need to be careful with some of the stats that you read or watch or hear. Month supply of inventory going up 22% sounds way more impactful than the month supply of inventory going from 1.8 to 2.2, right? And then lastly, everybody always wants to know what's happening with equity, what's happening with the value of my home. Well, median sales prices are up 4% from year to date compared to this same amount of time last year. Our properties are still going up in value. We still, and I don't really see an end in sight, have folks moving from all over the country, all over the world to Charleston, South Carolina. And a lot of these markets that they're moving from are more expensive than this market Now, for those of us that have lived here for a long time, I mean, I've lived here for this will be my 23rd year here next month. It sure has changed a lot in the 23 years or so that I've been here. For those that have lived here and have owned their home locally for a great length of time, I forget the statistic, but there's a very large percentage of people that could not afford to buy the home they currently live in. We've been the beneficiary of a pretty massive amount of appreciation over the course of the past really decade. I mean, prices have been going up for about 10 years now. And so we've now got this kind of melting pot, if you will, in Charleston, South Carolina, which is just a combination of folks from all over the country, but they're moving from expensive markets like LA and DC and New York. And it's just driven up prices because they have the ability to pay it, right? They're selling their home. They're in an appreciating market. They've banked a bunch of equity, and, their version of sticker shock is a lot different than our version of sticker shock, right? And so they tend to think that, wow, if I could get something like that for that price, then, I'm happy to, maybe pay a little bit more to beat out the other guy, so that I can be the one that wins. And it's kind of been that same story for years. I mean, really, since 2020. So the market has done incredibly well. And the question that I think a lot of people have is, well, what's going to happen to the market if interest rates go down? Right? When are we ever going to see the scales kind of balance? When is it going to be, realistic to assume that buyers have more power than sellers? I think we're still a long ways away from it. Now, the fact that we've seen months' supply of inventory increase 22% or 0.4 is encouraging, but we still have a long ways to go because a healthy, balanced market is about 6 months' supply of inventory. So we need to see an incredible amount of homes hit the market and an incredible reduction in the rate at which they go under contract and then ultimately sell before we're going to see stability in the market, because as it sits right now, it's still an environment where properties are appreciating in value, even though they are outpacing wages. And the last thing that I'll come to really quickly before taking a break is the affordability index for housing here in Charleston. The affordability index is a number that we look at to determine, how affordable the real estate market is in connection with wages. So like as an example, if we had an affordability index of 100, that means that the median wage is exactly 100% of what is necessary to qualify for a mortgage with a 20% down payment equal to the amount of the median sales price. So in other words, wages are perfectly in line with the cost of real estate. The higher the number, the more affordable real estate is. The lower the number, the less affordable real estate is. Well, we have, for, at least 2 years more than that, that number has been below 100 locally. Last month it was 76, meaning wages are only 76% of what is necessary to qualify for the median priced home, even with a 20% down payment, given today's interest rates. So obviously at some point the music's going to stop, right? At some point homes just are going to be unaffordable, and it's going to push so many people out of the market that it's going to gridlock it, stalemate it, whatever. And we're starting to see a lot of that. We've seen a lot of that actually for quite a while, especially in the entry level market. People just don't make enough money to afford the payments at a 7% interest rate on a home that, 4 or 5 years ago used to be $250. That's now, and with a 3% mortgage, that's now, $400. We've seen an incredible amount of appreciation. And frankly, for those that have owned in that period of time, an incredible amount of wealth that's been created. But it has also locked a lot of people into their homes because they're sitting pretty with a very low interest rate. Over 2/3 of the country has an interest rate at or below 4%, believe it or not. So it's creating this stalemate. So, we've talked a lot on this program about what's actually going to create inventory. And that's a whole separate topic that we'll talk about again, I'm sure, But again, feel free to go to YouTube and look at all these other videos. When we do these radio shows, I also record them. I then put them on YouTube. So if you want to put a face with the voice, you can check us out online. YouTube, you can go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. Of course, if you want to talk to me personally, give me a call privately or text me. My number is 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can send me an email if you think that's easier. Brian@BrianBeattyTeam.com. We were just talking about the market here in Charleston, and sometimes I feel like maybe these stats aren't all that exciting to you folks. I'm a numbers guy. I have followed it closely. I use it as a way for folks to really rely on me for market expertise. I've been following the numbers for almost 20 years, very intimately. And so I just share my experiences with you and my perception of what's happening so that in reality, for the folks that listen to this program, you're going to know what's going to happen before the data is going to prove it. Because it's all about trends, right? When you talk with a real estate agent that does a lot of real estate transactions and has a lot of conversations as a result of a lot of those transactions, you really get a sense for consumer behavior, consumer confidence or lack thereof, and the direction or the trend in which these markets are headed. And if I can then relay that information to you in an intelligent way, then you are in fact an informed consumer. And that's what the whole point of this show is to help educate you guys on this process. And so thank you for suffering through that. If you're not a numbers person, I know some of you appreciate that and are. I am, and I enjoy it. And so anyways, thanks for doing that. Anyways, I want to talk now about this, I think, lack of, reasonable expectations that I think sometimes sellers have when it comes to selling their house. And part of that is our fault as real estate agents. And so let me explain that. And first, let me just say, again, if you're thinking of hiring a real estate agent, we have all kinds of great incentives right now. We've got flexible commission structures. 843-800-0065 is my number. 843-800-0065. Call or text that number. Check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. Watch our other videos on YouTube. We'd appreciate all the engagement we can get there. And then, of course, we've got the podcast, right? So iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all that great stuff. But anyways, I was just mentioning how I think that real estate agents are partly or probably mostly to blame, frankly, for sellers' perception of how the home sale process is supposed to go. And so let me just say really quickly that I have a real love-hate relationship with social media. Sometimes I'm on it a lot. Sometimes I'm off it for, days, weeks at a time. I am not one of those people that is obsessive over social media. And I understand that can sometimes limit my ability to effectively reach my audience. There are plenty of people that have built their businesses off of social media. My challenge with it is industry specific. I can't think of another industry. Maybe you know of one. Maybe you're in one. I'm just not privy to it because of all the friends that I'm with, that I have that are real estate agents. But it seems like at least one in every 2 or 3 posts that an agent makes is braggadocious in nature. It's the typical double bicep emoji, did it again, sold it for 102% of the asking price in 2 days, or, the other agent failed to sell. It's just a bragging show. And that's what they want to show the public, right? Because that's the good stuff. And don't get me wrong, I think that we should celebrate our successes. I think that we should be able to, say when we've done something the right way and the stars align and everything works out to be a fantastic transaction for the client. But when it becomes commonplace to just brag, I just get annoyed by it. I'm not that person. I'm humble. I don't need, I think at this point, to brag about my success because I've done this, 1,500 times to the tune of $1 billion in real estate. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to continue. I mean, if I did that for every home that we sold, you'd be annoyed. I would be annoyed. I already am annoyed. But I think that we as agents push this narrative that if your home doesn't sell within like a week with multiple offers, then maybe you're not with the right agent, or maybe something has gone wrong, or fill in the blank. And so I think first and foremost, we were just talking about the stats for our specific area, in Charleston, and let's just break that up by county really quickly. In Charleston County, on average, it takes 35 days before a property goes under contract. In Dorchester County, it takes 42 days, and in Berkeley County, it takes 39 days, right? It's over a month. But because everybody loves to talk about how they sold their home in 48 hours and they had a line down the street and blah, 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 this, that, and the other, don't get me great. It's great when it happens, and I'm happy for all those that it happens to. We have, literally a third of our listings sell in a week or less. Another third sell in 30 days or less. And then the last third take more than a month because we sell all kinds of real estate. Multi-million-dollar development deals take a little bit longer. Multi-million-dollar listings or very specialty listings are just going to take longer to sell because there are less buyers for those types of properties. It doesn't mean that we're ineffective. It just means that we're realistic. And not everybody wants to sell their home immediately, because that can sometimes be synonymous with a discount or some sort of real pressure to sell quickly. Some folks are more than fine with waiting a few weeks, maybe a few months to get the price that they want, so long as we feel the price is attainable. They're okay with waiting. Nothing's pushing them out the door. This isn't a fire sale for them. And so if you want to find the right buyer that's willing to pay top dollar, that's going to take a little time. It's just reasonable, right? But I think that, again, agents push the narrative that they're the best and, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. So I think we do have a part to play in that. I will also say that not all of it is on the real estate agent. There was a survey that was done last year among first-time home sellers, and the number one complaint they had that caused them to feel like they could have sold their home for more money was the pricing strategy. They admitted that their pricing strategy was wrong. In fact, it was too high. They priced their home too high. They missed that initial wave of buyers, and then they had to price adjust. And I know that a lot of sellers are concerned that, well, hey, once you start one price reduction, then where do you stop? Well, in the grand scheme of things, it's still a very competitive, high-demand market. So if your home is worth $1 million and you list it for $500,000, do you really think the market is only going to let you sell it for $500,000? Now, I'm obviously not suggesting that strategy. That would be a stupid thing to do. But it proves the point that the market is going to pay what the market feels your property is worth. If you price it too high, then basically here's what happens. When that property first hits the market, you've got two groups of people that are looking at it. And I've said this before on this program, so sorry if you're hearing this for the second or third or fourth time, maybe more than that, because it's been, almost 12 years on this station. But here's the reality. When you hit the market, two groups of people are going to be looking at it. Group number one are the people that are ready, willing, and able, right? They are waiting for new listings to hit the market because they've exhausted the current supply. They don't like what's currently available, but they're ready to buy something. So as soon as you hit the market and they see that property, they're going to make some immediate decisions. That immediate decision is going to be, do they feel compelled to go and see it in person or not? Do they agree with your value proposition? Or are they going to be one of those folks that just like clicks the save button and then waits for you to adjust your price because they feel like you're just overpriced? They're not going to give you the time of day because they feel you're unrealistic. And the nice thing is when you work with a real estate agent that's really kind of like ahead of the curve with regard to technology, all this data is available. A lot of agents don't focus on that, but the data's there. We know, what sort of online traffic you should be getting. We have an idea. There's no exact science to this, but we have an idea of the number of, online views you should be getting. Those views should translate into a certain number of showings. That is then supported by the third-party company that arranges all showings in our market. It's called Showing Time. And just really quick sidebar, but when an agent wants to show a property, they just go online and they select the properties they want to see, the day and time they want to see them, and then the third-party company arranges everything. Well, as a result of that, they store all the data associated with who is showing what properties, how often, so on and so forth. So when I list a property for sale and I'm having the conversation with the seller, I pull up that data and I say, hey, over the past 30, 60, 90 days, here's what the trend looks like for the number of showings homes in your area and price range are getting on a monthly basis. These are our targets, basically, right? If we're above it, fantastic. If we're at it, great. If we're below it or really below it, adjustments probably need to be made. It's tough to have a honest conversation with a seller that you want to trust you if you can't back up your opinions and your commentary with data, right? And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But a big reason why properties don't sell or don't sell for the most money they should is because the property was priced too high. Again, part of that is at the seller's direction. Part of that is at the agent's direction. Maybe that agent is fearful that you're not going to sell your home, or more importantly, you're not going to hire that agent if they don't tell you an attractive enough price to get you excited enough to list your home with them. That is a strategy that is, probably been in existence ever since the first salesperson was ever created. So, and it's very common in real estate. I've talked at length about that on this program, about how agents, quote unquote, buy listings. Buying it meaning they bid the highest price for you to sign on the dotted line and hire that agent to help you sell your house. I don't do that. If that's the strategy the sellers want to take, I will go along with it. I'll help them understand the impact of that decision. We'll have game plans for when the basically inevitable occurs, which is that we're going to hit the market and not get much interest. But mine is very data-driven, facts-driven. Here's the data. Here's what has sold that is like your property. Here's what other buyers were willing to pay for it. Here's what these homes had or didn't have in comparison to yours. Here's how we make adjustments for those individual things that you have or don't have in comparison to others. And here's ultimately what we think this property is going to sell for, right? At the end of the day, we need to be an analyst, right? We need to analyze the data and provide suggestions that we think are going to help you sell your home for the most money possible. Pricing is just one element of it, though. When we come back, I'm going to talk about a few other things that I think people overlook that cost them money and can result in them just, on top of not having a great experience when selling their home, it costs them real money, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Remember, if you want to reach out to me, if you have some questions about my services, our different commission plans, what working with us is going to look like, or me specifically, then give me a call or text me, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or you can send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. Right now we're talking about some reasons why a home either might not sell or might not sell for the most money, which is probably a more realistic title for this continuation of this segment, which is, it's my responsibility as a real estate agent, and it's what gives me the most satisfaction in this job, is to know that I did everything that I could from A to Z to make my client the most money possible while not, I guess, creating such a stressful environment that it's not worth it to try and go after a little more money. And so let me just explain that really quickly before we go any further. Not every seller, and certainly not every client of mine, has been in a position where they are willing to draw lines in the sand and basically play hardball to the point where they might lose a sale. There are plenty of sellers that want to try and find a compromise. Now they want the scale to be a little more tipped in their favor, of course, than in the buyer's favor. But I find that plenty of people are just amenable throughout the process. But that doesn't mean that agents should be complacent in the representation of their client, because after all, we're the ones that do this all day, every day. And you guys move on average every 7 years, something like that. So, going back to some of these reasons why homes don't sell for top dollar, it could be motivation driven. It could be that, and again, I've said this before, but not every person that's selling a home is selling it for like a happy reason, right? Sometimes people sell for divorce. Sometimes there are properties that are inherited that are in rough shape and they don't have the money to fix it up. They don't live here to manage the project. They just want to get really kind of what they can for it, put the money in the bank, and then move on. Which, silver lining, there's opportunity for buyers out there. You just have to know how to find them, or you have to work with somebody that knows how to find them. But it could just be motivation related. It could be that, the seller is okay with taking a discount just for the sake of it being done, right? And closing that chapter in their lives. Now, I will say this also, agents sometimes have a tendency to make things more complicated than they need to be. They like to really kind of flex their muscle and demonstrate their value by stirring things up more than they need to be. And I've been a part of God knows how many transactions where the agent was the instigator, not their client. In other words, the agent's the problem. They're just trying too hard, and they're creating unnecessary levels of stress, both on their client and on the transaction, that could cause their client to lose the deal. I've seen it happen. It's really unfortunate when it does, but sometimes agents just can't get out of their own way. I think also, kind of on the flip side of that, there are agents that are sometimes too aggressive. There are agents that are also not nearly aggressive enough, but aggressive probably isn't the right word to use. I'm going to say proactive. And by that, I mean that, people do not like surprises in sales. They really don't. There are a lot of agents that lack the courage or the fortitude or the grit or the self-confidence, and they operate out of a sense of fear that you, the buyer or seller, just kind of want to hit the easy button and you're going to be okay with combing over the details of how the process works. That's one of the reasons why basically the National Association of Realtors lost this lawsuit. They settled, but let's be honest, they lost. And it's because there are way too many agents out there who are way too complacent with the rules and the laws that they're supposed to operate within. Classic example is, somebody, let's say you're interested in a property and you call up somebody that, and you want to go and you want to take a look at it. And the agent's like, yeah, I can let you in. Sure. And then you sit there and you start talking. You're like, well, what do you think about this place, Mr. or Mrs. Agent? They give their opinion and, they start to weigh in on price and, what they would do or what they would suggest if you wanted to make an offer. And obviously they're just trying to get you as a client and get the deal done. The problem is that agent is supposed to disclose the level of service that they can provide before you even go and see that house, right? There are all these rules that agents have just gotten used to not following out of fear that you, the potential client, the potential transaction, are just going to get frustrated with the ins and outs of how real estate are supposed to work. But in reality, we're supposed to be explaining this stuff to people. You're supposed to be made aware of the difference between a customer and a client and different types of agency. And that's one of the big problems, is that agents were basically glorified door openers making $20,000 a pop. And the sellers felt like, well, why am I having to pay these folks to negotiate against me? And the buyers were saying, well, I don't even know what that agent did for me or what they were supposed to do for me because we never talked about it. We never had a formal agreement. It was a problem. Now, I will say that that's not how we do business. That's not how my team does business. I've always done business with the idea that I want to be in business for as long as I choose to be. I'm never going to put myself in a position or my client in a position where I might get my license removed or you might get sued or any of those things. And so, yeah, sometimes it might feel like I'm being a stickler, but I don't want to wind up in jail. Neither do you. Or get sued or whatever. Lose my license, not be able to provide for my family. But I think a lot of agents are just not proactive enough. And that could also spill over into something like communication, right? It could spill over into marketing. There are a bunch of things, I could say, that agents don't do that other agents do that are huge differentiating factors between hiring a experienced, successful over time agent, maybe with a big budget and just more money in the bank to inject into your property to expose it to as many people as possible, versus the agent that's going to rely on their charisma and their personality to say like, hey, I'm here for you. If you ever see a property that you like, let me know. I'll drop everything. I'll show it to you. Don't get me wrong. There is value associated with availability, but I think a lot of agents are just not consulting people the way that they should be. And the way that we have done it for, 19 years. But again, that's not all the reasons why homes don't sell. There are plenty of others, and there are plenty of things on the seller side of the ledger that could be mentioned, like ignoring repairs or ignoring curb appeal. There are times, especially over the past several years, where sellers have gotten complacent. They said, well, look, there's so many people that are fighting over homes right now. Why am I going to go and break my neck, break my back doing a bunch of yard work, getting this home ready when I know that we're going to get a few offers on, day number one? It kind of makes sense. If I were a seller in that position, I'd be asking myself those same questions. I just know enough as a real estate agent to know that the work that you put into the home prior to putting it on the market is going to dictate the end result. The more you put into curb appeal and the experience of having somebody view your home in comparison to others, maybe others that aren't going above and beyond, that translates into real money, real cash in the bank. I've just seen it happen time and time again as I've sold 1,500 homes here locally. The folks that take the time to prepare their home for sale, and frankly, those that allow us to be included in that process are the ones that save a lot of money, because we can tell you what to do, what not to do, how much it's supposed to cost, and who to hire so you don't get overcharged or you don't hire somebody that's going to take way too long to complete the project. We are running into issues where we are now inheriting clients, especially on like the flipping side of our business, right? That are saying like, look, we're hiring you because the previous agent we've worked with has overpromised how much we can sell this home for after renovations, and they have underestimated how much it's going to cost to get the price we ultimately want to sell it for. Those are major issues that can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we've got fantastic contractors. We know that side of the business. I'm an investor myself. I've got a flip going on right now. I'm also a private money lender. So I've got this, little bit of experience in this regard. But I think that the sellers that choose to ignore that advice, or they consistently ignore the feedback from the people that are actually viewing the property, are the folks that tend to sit on the market longer than they should, that then start to get targeted by opportunistic buyers and investors that will then ultimately lower their sales price. So I think the point in telling you all this, because we're going to take a break and then talk about something else for just a moment. The point is the process is important. Who you hire matters. The strategy matters. It can matter a lot. It can be, tens of thousands of dollars. So hire appropriately, hire carefully. And if I can be included in that, feel free to give me a call. 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or email me, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. I went a little longer than I thought I was going to, so I don't have time to get to everything I wanted to discuss today, but hey, that just means we have more to talk about next time. I do want to give up my contact information again really quickly. 843-800-0065 is my direct line. You can call or text me on that number, 843-800-0065, or listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. My email address is Brian, BRIAN, at brianbeattyteam.com. Beatty is spelled Beatty. And so with just the last few minutes here, because of the way that real estate and the market in general has changed, and the results of the settlement that occurred just a little bit ago, we have not entirely, but we have revamped the way in which we, I guess, work with folks and the commission that's associated with it. We have always kind of taken the stance that if you want a price sensitive option, that we be able to offer one. We can go down as low as 1%, believe it or not. Now, there are other folks that want more services, and of course, for those services and for that time, we charge more. But I want you to understand that if you're thinking of selling a home, we've got a bunch of options. We've got a bunch of incentives for you. I can't share that because the agents listen to this show. But I invite you to give me a call or text me if you're thinking of making a move, and let's talk about what some of those incentives are and how that might benefit you. But the big change is going to be on the buyer side, right? You're going to find that sellers are going to be less open to paying a buyer agent, which means you as a buyer might now have to compensate your agent if you want one. You're not required to have one, never have been. But there's going to be a lot of interesting changes to consumer behavior that is going to make it hard on buyers. Now, we're getting ahead of the curve a little bit on this because these changes don't take place for another 90 days or so. But if you're thinking of making a move in the next 90 plus days, I think it's incredibly important for you to have a conversation and a bit of a consultation with a real estate agent so that you understand what your options are, because they are changing. And we're going to go over that continuously on this program as time goes by. But again, 843-800-0065 is the number to call if you have questions. Let's go over some of the different solutions that we can offer you, and make sure that you're well taken care of. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And we'll catch you next time.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.